Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to today's webinar. We are going to wait a couple minutes to let folks trickle in, and then we'll be right back to pick up the conversation. Hang tight. All right, it looks like we've got a good quorum of folks on the call. So thank you all for being here today, and welcome to our first webinar in our Eco Champions Live webinar series. My name is Amber Artrip, and I am the Vice President of Marketing at EnergyCap. And just to cover a few housekeeping items before we get started today, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available on energycap.com in 24 hours. We will also be emailing all of the registrants a copy of the recording to watch at your leisure. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen there, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. If we're not able to get to your question, we will follow up with one of our folks will follow up with you. Without further delay, let's go ahead and kick things off. So as I mentioned, my name is Amber Artrip. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at EnergyCap. And for those of you who aren't familiar with EnergyCap, we are an energy and sustainability ERP, and we allow you to effectively track your energy usage and cost data in a single platform. You might ask, what is an energy and sustainability ERP? Well, it's a platform that serves as a single source of truth for all of your energy and sustainability data points. This is becoming more and more important as we're seeing energy, sustainability, and accounting teams coming together around decarbonization goals. And it's vital that these teams are working from the same data, and EnergyCap helps make that possible. I'm an environmentalist at heart, and my favorite part of my job is when I get the opportunity to connect with customers to learn not only how they're using our platform, but how they're using other tools and innovative best practices to achieve decarbonization at their organizations. And every time I meet with a new customer, I learn something new. And that is exactly why we created the Eco Champions community. A little bit about this community that we've created. The Eco Champions community is the convergence of energy, sustainability, finance, and leadership teams who are working together with the common goal of decarbonization. We're an alliance of energy, sustainability practitioners, educators, executives, industry analysts, and thought leaders who are joining together to share ideas, continue to challenge the status quo, and push forward together in building a more sustainable world. The goal of this community is really to elevate best practices, technology, and innovation to achieve sustainability through responsible consumption of the Earth's finite resources. And with that, I'm happy to welcome our very first Eco Champion, Greg Norris, who currently serves as the Manager of Energy and Utility Programs at UTMB Anderson. He has a BS in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Texas. He's worked for 23 years in the energy efficiency business, and with the last 15 being at MD Anderson. He's responsible for managing utility supply side contracts and implementing hedging strategies to meet the budget goals and risk tolerance for MDA's $50 million energy budget across 16 million square feet of owned and operated facilities. It also promotes demand side efficiency efforts by maintaining and helping to create relevant and relevant and actionable energy reports and tools, as well as promoting implementation of new energy strategies and pilots. And a little fun fact about Greg is that he once competed with Joey Chestnut in a colucci eating contest, and he let Joey win. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see Greg here. Hi, Greg. Welcome to Eco Champions.
Hi, thanks for having me. Those are kolaches, by the way. And
Pilates. I knew I was
yeah.
going to say it wrong. I knew it.
Yeah. And we'll just go with I let him win.
Well, I went and I Googled it because I had to look this up. I didn't even know what a kolache was. And so if you Google Greg and Greg Norris and kolache eating contest, you'll see what we're laughing about.
I can't believe that exists on the internet.
Well, thanks again for being here, Greg. It's so great to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at MD Anderson Cancer Center and kind of your energy goals and how you got into this space?
Sure. Well, you said you're an environmentalist at heart. I guess I probably didn't start out that way, but maybe once I discovered it, I got there as fast as I could. So I didn't know anything about energy coming out of college, but it was my first job. So when you get sent out on a trip to go audit a facility and find energy opportunities, eventually catch up. And that led me to here on the owner side. I really enjoy this work a lot, and I kind of see my work, and you kind of described it before. It's kind of both sides. So you've got demand side and supply side. I still, in my heart, have a affinity for supply side. Demand side type activities. So just continually saving energy in our space, finding opportunities, and visualizing data, which is what one of the things that we use Energy Cap for. And on the supply side, though, it is about contracts and finding the best price. But as you mentioned, when Energy Cap kind of created the account side and the meter side of the software, and we're old phaser customers, so I've lived through a long part of the evolution, but it really changed the way we work. I mean, it's solidified a connection with finance in a way where we designed our account side and the account tree to be how they worked, and I designed the meter side to be how our operations teams worked. And as reporting and dashboards fold into that, and how you guys have added more stuff over the years, it allows them to then go back to this as a source. So not only a place where data is entered, but a source for using that data and the visualizations there.
I love that. Why don't you share with us a little bit about, you've been using Energy Cap for a while, you've been at MD Anderson for a while. Can you share a little bit about your goals and kind of how you've evolved in your role, in your tenure?
Sure. So most of our goals, maybe like a lot of the people listening, are revolve around a percent savings against a baseline, and that's fine. I mean, that's actually something that that a tool like Energy Cap is good for tracking with. So we started out with some simple goals of saving 5% over a 10-year period, and it got extended to 10 and 15. But during that time, from say a baseline of 2001 until the end of that goal, which is actually what happened a couple of years ago when we hit the end, we had saved 40% since then, and we again use Energy Cap to track that along the way. In between, though, I would say internal goals were even more than that. We had some more aggressive goals related to that, and we're really starting to transition our goals towards creating programs. So I think that once you picked all the low and medium hanging fruit, how do you sustain that? What programs are needed? What tools need to be in place to make sure that you don't go backwards and that you continue moving forwards? And along with that, we're starting to develop some decarbonization goals, of which energy savings is a large part of that as well. but you know, really setting up, you know, what is our footprint and understanding that the same way. At one point, we were adding meters and, you know, sub-meters and instrumentation to say, well, you know, where are we now with energy? We're doing the same thing with carbon now.
Sorry, I was on mute, but I love it. I love to hear that. That's great. And I'm curious, you kind of tapped into a little bit, but I'd love to dive in a little deeper.
Mhm.
What role has technology played in helping you achieve these goals and your, you know, your goals moving forward?
I kind of picture this journey, at least internally, and sometimes I'll let other people know. Now you guys all know, as kind of a Internet of Things type philosophy, where, you know, you're connecting information and people. But there's more to it too. It's getting the right information to the right people at the right time. And, you know, overall, then, you know, when you step back, your goal is really to spend less time inputting data and more time analyzing data and connecting that information to actual actions. And to me, that's how we use technology. So it's, you know, what can we do to move data next to closer to where it works, or push two pieces of data closer together and create an insight to that. And again, get it, every goal is, well, how do you turn a wrench, or, you know, create a program or something. So is it where some action happens, and, you know, again, and then on top of all that, once it happens, being able to sustain it is big. So conservation is not everything. Sustainability is, and conservation have to work hand in hand.
That's great. Switching gears a little bit, I'd love to talk about some of the unique challenges of being a medical center. I'm sure there's many, but we're talking to a lot more medical centers and healthcare facilities than ever before. And so I think people might find it helpful to understand what challenges you face and kind of how you've overcome them.
I think, and it may sound like we're not unlike a lot of people, but the people and purpose of our spaces is number one. Just the people and purpose of the types of spaces that we have do have some unique challenges, maybe that we don't have even in some of our own facilities, like an office facility versus a acute care hospital or laboratory building. But that's our number one priority is that, and you know, everything we do is, you know, revolves around that is the constant, and safety being, you know, number one. But related to my work, I guess, the hospital and lab space design, just because of the types of spaces they are, just leads to safety factors over safety factors. And you know, whether it's code requirements or regulatory requirements, you know, for us it may be CMS and Joint Commission. There's always some level of risk for everything, and not just energy work. So, you know, there's no right and wrong or just one answer to any particular issue. And it's much more complex. And the bigger the building, kind of the more dizzyingly complex it can get. And but each one of those things, you know, sometimes leads to being more conservative or adding more level of risk. And you know, every change to that kind of is met with serious resistance, like for a good reason. And I think that you overcome that by this is, again, as use of technology has really helped, by connecting people to that data, showing them, you know, the results of actions or decisions, and also, I would say, related to my work, showing them successes. So you know, a small success builds on another one, and, you know, we can do this. We can lower air changes. We can set an operating room back, as long as we connect that system to the operating schedule system, and there's a fail-safe, and there's ways to work around the constraints and still make a big difference. And you know, in the end, I think that the what ties a bow on the whole thing is being able to then report out and show, you know, we were safe, you know, we did this, the building operated fine, and here was the improvement. This is why it was worth it.
That's great. you kind of touched on it a little bit, but before you had technology, did you get, and you knew you needed a system to help you manage all this data, did you get any pushback internally on, do we really need a tool to help us? Is it worth the investment? And kind of how did you, if that was the case, how did you handle that and mitigate those reactions?
That's a pretty good question. So our acquisition of Energy Cap, even though I've been at MD Anderson for 15 years, so it way preceded me. So, but it was always the tool that we use. You can't have a file cabinet full of bills. Even on the regulatory side, or what the state asks us of reporting, we needed something, even though we had a lot of spreadsheets. I probably a lot of your listeners are gonna still have. We still have some spreadsheets, but there's only so far that can take. So the commitment to a tool was maybe not as hard, but there is a journey of like how you use that tool and how it's configured. I think that once we were, even in its early days, once we were able to show that we could use data to drive decisions, it became easy to continue down that path. And it's a snowball effect in a good way. I mean, as you master one part, some other feature becomes available, or the things that you want to add, you do that. I definitely think that we're not done. There's still much more to do, but our partnership with finance, really like as soon as it got outside of just the energy team, that kind of moment made me happy, where we have multiple groups working it, and then even dashboards where operational teams are seeing those and going to them. And it wasn't me like extracting data, copying it into a spreadsheet, creating a certain graph that this team liked, or this team liked a graph to look this way. It wasn't me doing that anymore. So those were all manual processes that that we were able to eliminate, but kind of let them evolve as to fit our business needs and the way we work.
That's great. Did you, it sounds like you're working really closely with the finance team now, and you're using the same data, and that's what we love to hear. It's great. But was it always that way, or did having technology help? Or
it wasn't always that way. So I would say that we evolved because there's always a group of people that are asking for certain data, and when Energy Cap was just our utility system of record, where all our bills were many hand keyed bills from the old way, and but we knew what other people wanted, and sometimes it's, what are people asking for? How do they want to see data? And then starting to use that to help us evolve the tool as you guys evolved the tool. Maybe we even gave some feedback along the way that helped you guys drive some decisions. But I think it starts there. It's listening to, what these are customers to us, right? So they're internal customers, but they're customers. So listening to, how do we get data? What do people want to see? And how can we in some way use a tool, that technology, if it's a combination of what something else we have in this, but in the end to provide that information with maybe the lightest touch possible. But we're always looking for new features to take advantage of. We have we keep a list of things we want to accomplish as we learn it. Sometimes we even reprioritize if something cooler comes out and we want to do that. But some years ago, it was, how do we get rid of all the spreadsheets? How do we just not have any manual processes? And we're not to zero, but we are to almost none. And so that's a good feeling. And that's really a technology thing too. Is just, how can we better reformat something we get, or work with somebody like, say, a city of Houston and their water bills, which were never flat files, to get them, a pretty big organization, even bigger than us, to change also to fit our needs.
it's very impressive. To almost nearly none. hand-keyed bills. It's a huge accomplishment. So great work.
It's really close to none out of 800 or so.
That's really impressive. Let's dive into some of the biggest challenges that you face throughout your career. It can be at MD Anderson or beyond, but just kind of other challenges you face in the industry and how you've overcome them.
Biggest challenge for me always, and maybe it's just a goal that just can never really be accomplished. You just continue to get better on, is connecting our energy performance with operations. So again, how do you see something and then create action based on that? And we it's at some point many years ago, I remember writing down and defining this problem as how do we find inefficiencies faster? And as maybe as good as we had gotten with energy cap, without sub-meters and interval data and things like that, was maybe 1 month later you see that the bill went up or down, but you've been tracking and we've been reducing over over time, and maybe it was 3 months or 4 months or in the worst case as much as 6 months, and you're like, okay, now something goes wrong and you have to figure out how to fix it too. So what was the thing that was wrong? There's the higher level you are with your data, then the harder it is to go down and drill down and find out that it was a broken valve or something. So all the way till today, where we show them through interval data the performance from the day before. So and we might not look at it every day. We're not, the start is having it there and making sure it's available. And to me, it's how do we find inefficiencies faster? But it's really a bigger goal of how do we just know how we're performing. And I think personally about the 2 cars that I have. One that tells me the miles per gallon right in front of my face, and also scores my entire drive, scores my braking, and I for sure drive that car differently than the car that doesn't show me that information. If you ever accelerated into a stop sign and then hit the brakes hard, then that's an example of a really bad braking. But I do it less in the car that tells me. You don't want to get a 20 out of 100 from your car. I don't need my car giving me bad scores, but it's kind of gamifying things. I guess is a thing. So I feel the same way with our operations. So I'll probably never get there in a good way, but it's always how do you score better? How do we connect something that we saw? And sometimes it's not easy to find that. It might be 2 tools that together that like, okay, I definitely saw something there, and then make something happen. But biggest challenge by far, and there's a bunch of challenges in between too, because there's resistance to change. That's the way we've always done things. We know this works, and to small things like we had an issue or a customer complaint, and I want operations in that case to not be thinking about efficiency. They need to be thinking, they need to be customer focused. But how can we re-huddle after that and find a better solution, rather than something that might stay wide open and operator because at that time they needed it and nobody noted it or talked about it. We catch more of that stuff now than we ever did, and but it's never done. There's always something else or somewhere else that we can get better, or that we took our eyes off of. That's what makes this job fun. There's always something there.
There's always something, right? I need to find that car that you use for the braking. My brake pads would appreciate it. That's awesome. I'd love you shared with me before we had a pre-call, and you shared with me you have some really cool, unique ways of sharing the data that I think some other customers might find valuable. So I don't know if you want to just explain your process for how you share data.
Sure. One of my favorite recent I guess features in Energy Cap that we've taken advantage of is the ability to share a dashboard, externally to the software. We've started to embrace Microsoft Teams post COVID and lockdown, we're kind of forced to use some of these tools. I think that utilizing them to be better instead of just to replace what you were doing before was definitely the goal too. I guess same thing as the challenge from before. It's just, well, how can we continue to get better? These two things came together to us. It was the Energy Cap has all these great dashboards you can build now, and the ability to share them, and putting it right in Teams. So once we started working our energy teams through Teams, and we have 5 distinct energy teams or operations teams, so 5 energy teams as well for each one of those. And they all have a channel in Teams that we go to and meet, and their dashboard is there. And getting that information in front of them. I don't want to excuse ourselves for it's hard to have a bunch of operators log in or ask them to log into to Energy Cap, but usually I was only getting supervisors or above, and now the data is there even for those supervisors and above, or a tech to go look how is their portfolio of buildings doing. So that's, I guess, the other great part about the customizable dashboards is really I took the same dashboard and created some filters, some groups, and they're the data is live, and it's accessible, and just that was a huge breakthrough for us, is to get data, and some of the information from our other tools goes to those same channels. So they're seeing Energy Cap, which is a good indicator of where we've been and where we're going, with some of the more granular tools, and really see the difference of, hey, I did something and now I can see the impact of that. And it's not just me having to sit down with somebody and deliver that message. It's part of how we work.
I love that. I think that's a great way to innovate, especially in the remote nature that we are all in today. So that's a really cool story. I wanted to ask you, kind of switching gears a little bit, but I wanted to ask you about a specific project that you're really proud of, and if you could walk us through it.
Sure. My favorite project is a central plant optimization project that we worked on for many years. But I like this one because of its connection to actual operations. There's some projects, like say an air change reduction project that saved really big dollars, like say $2.5 million a year. But it involved about 3 people, and nobody noticed is when you change the air, when you adjust the air changes, hopefully, if you've done it right. So the project like that was big and fulfilling. But what I really like about our optimization project is we had a series of plants. They're interconnected in different buildings, and we had a really skilled operator. And when we installed these plants, which weren't all built at the same time, and then interconnected them, there were a lot of operational constraints, and which these teams lived through. I didn't live through these, but I was around. I just wasn't part of that operation at the time. And to me, on top of this, there was a failure. We tried to optimize and automate the plants, and it didn't work. So we've got an operator who has figured stuff out, but has definitely said, hey, this is the way it works. And he's lived through the bad times, so he was like, we can't change. This is the way it should be. And we also had a project that we pumped a lot of money and time into, and it didn't work. But we, despite that, at least maybe it was somebody let me do it for some reason. Maybe they figured, well, it's not going to work, or something. But they didn't stop me when I tried to attack this problem. And we started with measurements. So it was, can we put a bunch of instrumentation in and know how we're doing, and then find certain times where, well, maybe we operated inefficiently at this time, and we made some changes, and it was a good connection between us and operations. But the real breakthrough was when we decided when we finally had enough comfort to say we can do better. We can do even better than good. And it was a matter of well, let's start to rewrite some sequences. Let's start to automate first. And, it really turned into something where from, this won't work and this is waste, to let's go all the way. And, as we sit today, just skip to the end, the plants are fully automated, and there was a bunch of savings too. So we saved $300,000 a year. So every year we're spending much less to make the same amount of chilled water.
Wow.
It involves over a $200,000 one-time utility rebate. The total payback was in the 3.5-year range. It was about a 15% reduction of our plant energy use. And through some of that measurement, even though all this water wasn't directly, some waters are related to just being more efficient because you have, using less water in your cooling towers. But through the effort of measurement and paying attention to operation, that team itself started paying more attention to some of these domestic water meters that we installed to track our water use, and they've reduced water by 50%. So they cut their water use in half just by paying attention to the, when there were leaks or what was happening and what's the right amount of water to use. So in some ways, again, this data that we collect in interval data became the data that was the basis for us pushing into Energy Cap. So it's that we had already collected, and it also makes it easier to push in, and having the right format and be ready to visualize it both in the interval. And at the time, now Energy Cap has interval data, so we take advantage of that as well. But at the time, it was two different tools, but both useful and both using the same data set. And it also, in the end, the operational savings and the improvements that we made are just more valuable than the utility reduction. It's a good feeling to say that we're better operationally than we were before, and also we saved a bunch of money in the process, and we're more efficient. So that's it's a good overall decarbonization type goal. But the operator who made all this work is now retired. So I kind of feel like a lot of his knowledge lives on in the code that we built to take care of all those scenarios that he knew that would occur if you do this and then this, and then this doesn't work, or this is better. So we were able to kind of we programmed around just everything. So I really like the human connection there, and the all throughout the way, and then including today, where they have their team's dashboards for Energy Cap. We utilize that to convince ourselves we were going down the right track, right? So it's one thing when sometimes if you get your head in the weeds too, you don't really see the big picture. So we were able to see both.
That's huge accomplishment. Congratulations. I mean, massive savings, but like you said, like almost even more importantly, operational efficiency. It's hard to pinpoint the ROI on that, but it's
I know
really...
it feels bigger. It feels more important, and also one of my favorite things too is it's hard to save, but it's also a challenge to sustain savings over time too. So things like this that become a new practice, or or there's a tracking tool to make sure that we continue to be efficient. That's the cherry on top of a good project.
Absolutely, I love it. The cherry on top. I'm going to use that in my next marketing campaign. We talked about this earlier on our pre-call, and I wanted to tap into it. You approach benchmarking in a unique way, and so I'd love for you to share with the folks on the call your approach.
Well, we do have the advantage at 16 million square feet or 60 million plus square feet to have a lot of similar buildings that I can benchmark internally against. And I think that's benchmarking is a challenge. It's something we should all do. We do on the UT system level, and with some of our peers in the Texas Medical Center, we share information. But to me, and being able to benchmark our own buildings against each other is a good tool, maybe the best tool, to really show what the differences are in certain buildings, where I can fully understand all of the data the challenge of benchmarking is you see another building and they might be half lab and half office, and we might be 80% lab and 20% office with an animal facility in the basement or something. So there's different there's different aspects to a building that I think Energy Star Portfolio Manager does a good job, and it's also something that we're interested in, and we don't fully take advantage, but we're we're partners, I guess. But the using Energy Cap, say, and even a group of buildings where I segregate our research facilities and just say, well, here's how we can understand the difference between these. And right now we're doing a lot of construction, and a building that we built less than 10 years ago or so, and so we were designing it before that. If we're designing a building today, it should beat our best building. So if we made our best building before, then our targets are we're going to be better than that, and we more closely understand the differences of those buildings. So if we know we're building a wet chemistry lab, I can even benchmark against our ones that are like that. Or if a clinic versus a hospital, we've utilized Energy Cap heavy for our benchmarking, even more than, I hate to say this because it might sound bad, but it really isn't. But more than some of these Energy Star tools, which again are useful, and they're in some ways required at the state level. So that data makes it there eventually, but it's not what we use day to day. Day to day we use we segregate our data within Energy Cap and benchmark in there. And even as far as, like I was saying, we collect data at 15-minute intervals. We take our weather data and our use, and I've got an internal tool that we use that creates baseline use every 15 minutes for every weather condition, and we can track how did we do, what's the baseline for all those intervals, and then our actual use. Again, all that data at the end of the month gets pushed into Energy Cap then.
That's awesome. I love it. Really cool stories. So kind of looking ahead at the industry, at MD Anderson Cancer Center specifically, what excites you the most about the future of energy and sustainability?
Well, maybe I know I didn't say yet, but if it's not obvious, I'm a big data nerd. The idea of more connected tools, better reporting and visualization is what gets me up in the morning and go until the end of the day. But what also really excites me is I think that we've been successful in the energy savings world of really reducing and understanding what a building's use should be. We're never done. There's always so much, but we're really starting to translate some of this stuff into decarbonization goals. So I would say that we're early in the measurement phase of decarbonization. So energy savings is a big part of that. We've already created Energy Caps, or used Energy Caps carbon dashboard to start building that. But what we need to, of course, add is our waste streams, our vehicle use. Make sure the conversion factors are accurate, and for our purchased chilled water and steam, those type of things. But utilizing these tools now maybe for our next set of goals, because we really went from a bunch of teams targeting at buildings and just doing a lot of energy work to once we hit that point where we're like, we have to sustain this. We saw many of our efforts kind of start to undo themselves. It really kind of solidifies that idea of needing a tool to make sure that a sustainability tool. And so to me, the decarbonization goals are related to that same sustainability tools that we've been building and making sure that operationally every day we're as good or better than we were before. We plan to build our decarbonization goals on that. And you're right now we're early in the definition part, but we've been decarbonizing in a way through energy savings, and we'll take the next step. And part of the fact that maybe some of that is unknown, I'm still writing our framework right now. There's an excitement about what we can do, what's possible, and what tools are out there to help guide us through that, and community information, what we can learn from others and how they're doing this.
That's great. I think you're doing it the right way too. Really, when you think about decarbonization, it starts at, understanding what you're using and then working on the projects to minimize that, right? They say the best energy avoidance is the watt you don't use, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
you're doing it the right way and approaching it the right way. So
I think
really
everybody kind of sorry about that. So everybody kind of starts with this with, we'll just pick a number, say you're going to do something %. And my hesitation is the same on the decarbonization as it was with energy stuff. It's like, well, if you don't really understand, what you're doing, what's possible, then the percent goal is less meaningful, because nobody knows how to get there then. So really stopping and measuring and determining a path, at the beginning, to me, that time is worth it.
Yeah, I think what you can also see is when people do kind of skip that foundational step of understanding the data, they start to activate programs that may not be necessarily the best for the environment, right? Like offsetting carbon, great, but you could also do some work to reduce energy, and that's actually better for the environment, right? So
yes,
yeah, really, really impressive work that you've done over the last couple decades, like really, really impressive. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your commitment to conservation. Really, it's really impressive. My final question for you is, what advice would you have for other professionals in the industry, folks on the call who are looking to accomplish what you've done?
We'll probably touch on some things that I might have already spilled the beans on, but measurement. I think that the more you can measure, the better. We're even starting to discuss where can we have system level measurements. So you have sub-metering to understand your utility bills and where that data is, and maybe metering level below that is, well, let me know what this floor or the system is using and how that rolls up to the sub-meter, which rolls up to the utility bill. So just and I think that the next one, it was eliminate manual inputs, spend more time analyzing data. We had a transition period where it was just necessary to spend even more time on inputs, because to make something better, you're almost having to spend even more time on your inputs, but it's those processes that you end up building are worth it, because in the end, then they eliminate all the manual input that you're doing. So ditch all the spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. I have tools that are fully built in a spreadsheet and are automated and send actionable insights out to teams. That's one thing, but to use it as a in this process for collecting data and seeing high level actionable insights, the more that things can be automated and pushed to the right place, the less, no more spreadsheet. We used to have a spreadsheet to say, well, we had one building or two buildings with one utility bill. We'd have a spreadsheet where we calculated the use, so that way we could send it out to operations. I'm so glad we don't do that anymore. Instead we're looking at those buildings and providing some information, so I don't have to waste time putting that together just so they can see the difference between two buildings, but that we can talk about each building's performance. So definitely eliminate as much manual work, and errors actually come from that too. So we're making less errors. We're using these tools to help us find errors even. And I think all of this kind of is like, become a data nerd, or make friends with a data nerd. So because there's so much information that now can be easily moved and visualized. Our central plant project, we didn't accept defeat just because we failed before. We measured and said, we see opportunities to get better. We even knew when we kind of hit that point where this might be all we can do with this level of effort. We need to bring in and the next level of effort and somebody to help us program some of these ideas, because we were saving energy just still being manually, but being better at operating manually. But it was like, how can we automate? All this was data driven. So just believing that using the tools to help convince yourself and others that you can do better. And like I said, we keep a wish list, so we're not we're never done. We have a list of things that we want to get done that'll help do the next thing. So never satisfied with what we have. We're probably even sometimes sending you guys when you teach us a new feature, it's like, this is great, but what if it could do this? So the feedback loop with our software providers and utilities is important. And you kind of, it sounds simple too, but you forget to do that. We went through a time where we were doing something the hard way in Energy Cap, and nobody had questioned it. This was before the online version of Energy Cap, but we were still doing something like the really hard way. And at one point we were upgrading, and they said, "Why are you doing it that way?" And we had just never asked. We never said that we didn't know how to do it. So we use the support feature a lot more too. Never afraid to say, I don't know how to do this.
Sorry, I was muted there, but we love it. We are also data nerds at Energy Cap, so you are our people. We love data nerds. So that's great. Really great advice. I think it really begins and ends and continues on with data really as the foundation, right? So
yes.
That's great. Okay, we got a couple questions from the audience. One of them is about your engagement with finance and your role, and what is the cadence that you connect with finance, and what are those? How does that collaboration work?
At one point, and this is so it used to be that they would just ask us for information, and we'd figure out how to get it out of the software and get them what they needed. At one point, a decision was made, and I recall not liking this decision at the time. It was scary. It was to remove the finance function out of the energy team. It was a forced change, and but it, interestingly enough, though, you have to explain your processes. You have to teach somebody something, and so where we are today, and we weren't there before, was our finance team actually receives bills, which is good because they pay the bills. I don't pay the bills, and they we created the processes and taught them how to push the data in, and they're not just they're active participants. They're not just doing whatever we say, but it was, let us we'll lead how to how we want things set up, and we created a partnership there. So now at this point, they're all the way to putting data in, running chargebacks, checking for errors, all that. And that accounting side is what they need, and we even use it to compare our general ledger. So we, what was actually paid versus what we thought we were going to pay, and close that out. So that was an old manual spreadsheet process for them. So sometimes it was, what spreadsheets do you guys have? Because you don't know when you pass data to another team that's external to yours, how they use it. Sometimes they don't know how to ask for that data. Maybe they were asking the wrong thing or not asking for enough. So the collaboration actually made it to where we configure the software to be more what they want, and all the way to the way where they're just fully in control of the of that process. We meet twice a week and discuss issues. So it's just like my operations energy teams. We just touch base a lot, twice a week since we went remote. And it was probably once before, but I think that we're even more efficient with passing back and forth needs and wants and things that we need help on. There's always a back and forth of that information, and again, it all kind of revolves around what we see from the front end.
That's great. Yeah, we're seeing more and more collaboration between these three groups: the energy and utilities owners, the accountants and the finance teams, and now the sustainability groups, right? They're coming in, they need the data too. Do you work closely with the or is there a specific sustainability department at MD Anderson, or what's your relationship with that?
We do sustainability through partnership. The energy team is relatively small and more engineering focused, but we also have an engineering team. So they're going to be supporting our building spaces. Our finance team that we have collaboration with supports the finance side, and our operational teams, basically we all come together. So if it's building automation and energy, and our engineering team and operations team will come together and collaborate on for energy savings there. So it's together. And then I guess I kind of skipped over sustainability, which is important too. So the waste stream is those items are done by our environmental health and safety team. At one point, we changed organization a lot. We're a state institution, so at one point my team was actually part of it, the health and safety team. But either way, collaboration is collaboration. So we work with that team as well on some sustainability items.
It's great, really great.
Transitioning them to this tool too will be that's kind of our next fun thing to accomplish.
Awesome.
Getting their waste streams and stuff put into Energy Cap and tracking from there. They're where we were at one point. I mean, they just had some reports that were emailed to them. Then they had spreadsheets. Now they might have something they can log into from the waste company. But now it's how do we get data closer to other data?
Yeah, all together. Single source of truth. It's great. Well, we're excited for that. Can't wait. One last question from the audience before we wrap this up. It's about your 40% savings metric that we mentioned earlier. The question is, what tactics did you take to achieve that, and how long was the time frame?
Time frame was we really got our programs kind of kicked in gear maybe 2002 or 3 or so, and the bulk of the savings were accomplished up until about 2012 or 13. So that's about a decade of some pretty significant low-hanging fruit and again, medium-hanging fruit. For us and our climate and our types of buildings, 100% outside air, laboratory spaces, and a lot of high air or specific humidity and temperature requirements in hospital spaces. It wasn't just setbacks. However, a higher level after some low-hanging fruit is, can you set back our OR spaces by connecting the scheduling system with our building automation, and how can we dynamically reset set points based on real-time requirements. It wasn't just lighting, in other words, but it wasn't just setbacks, but things like laboratory air changes. Most older buildings were designed for 12 air changes. We did a lot of testing and proved that we could go to almost half that. So when a building was able to, through some of that testing, we now have it in our standards when we build a new building that lab air changes are 6 air changes occupied and 4 unoccupied with a button on the wall to push if you're going to come in late at night. So just our hot, humid climate, and which a CFM of air is nearly $10 per CFM, continuous CFM. So we've reducing that is a big savings. Our air conditioning is heating and air conditioning probably accounts for almost 75% of our energy use.
Wow.
When it comes to pumping and moving air, pumping water, heating and cooling, it's such a large part. So it really came down to that, and then some high level stuff. Heat recovery, water side and air side. So most people are familiar with heat wheels and other stuff, but we do heat recovery chillers to take heat, basically from where we didn't want it when we're doing cooling, and stick it back into the hot water loop and send it to places where we do want it for reheating or other things. So after our initial set of measures, we also included stuff like our optimization of the South Campus chilled water and heat recovery, and a lot more trim and response type things. So how can we know what's happening in the space and deliver just the amount of energy that space needs in a safe way? So also these are spaces where there's not accepted to be outside certain parameters. So we were still able to do those things even in these spaces. In some cases, the more energy a building uses, there's almost more opportunity, because there's a lot of safety factors on there, and like, how can we safely chip away at some of that safety, and with program and still be as safe, still have fail safe type sequences to protect ourselves if something goes wrong.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't get we had another question here that we didn't get to, but it wasn't really a question, but I wanted to share it with you. It says Greg rocks with 7 exclamation points.
Maybe that's somebody I know
from the audience. So thanks for that. I agree. Greg rocks.
Thank you.
Greg, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story, for all the work that you do. We're just really, really proud to call you an eco champion of ours, and look forward to your continued success.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more of this series. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm gonna just share my screen one last time. If I can figure this out. Here we go. So thank you all for joining us for our Eco Champions webinar series. We will be doing more of these. And so if you want to attend more of our webinar series, you can visit energycap.com/eco champions. We also have an ebook where we've collected responses from 67 of our eco champions, and we've compiled all of their learnings, best practices, tips, and advice for others into a pretty lengthy 80-page ebook, but you can go through and read individual stories. It's pretty great. You can also find that on energycap.com/eco champions. We will also be sending out a copy of the ebook and links to the upcoming webinars in our follow-up email. And as always, if you have any questions, you can email us at marketing@energycap.com. Thank you all again for being here. This will be recorded, and we will send this out within the next 24 hours for you to watch or share with others. So thank you again, everyone, and have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.